Welcome back to the celebration. It's Alex Belfield talking to the stars of the cruise, and of course the big man in charge is Captain John. How are you?
Very well, Alex. Very good morning.
Nice to see you, and thank you for such a lovely week. I mean, we've been on the bridge, we've seen you dock, we've been watching you entertain the crowds, we've seen you shake hands. I mean, you are the master of the ship in a way. You're the man that's responsible for everything, and when you pass the corridor, people want to shake your hand. You're a PR man as much as a captain, aren't you?
Yeah, it's a very, very important part of the job, and I think if you don't enjoy meeting people, getting out with the guests, then it's really not the right job for you, and it's an aspect of the job I very much enjoy. The ship handling is great fun. It's something that I do take a pride in, but also I like to get out to meet the guests and get around the ship, and that's very enjoyable as well.
And everybody wants to meet you. There's a certain protocol, isn't there, about cruising, and you're the big man in charge, and they dream of getting on your table, and they dream of meeting you. There's some great old-fashioned values about cruising.
I think there are. I think cruising has changed quite a bit, though, fairly recently. I think people do have sort of preconceived ideas before they come, particularly with Thomson cruises, where we do have a more informal style of cruising, but we keep the formal aspects of the gala night, the captain's reception as well, which I think adds a nice touch to the cruise. But you're quite right. It's nice to have a nice group of guests on the table. Very, very enjoyable indeed. But it's nice to get out and meet everyone at the gala night as well. Yeah.
Been a fascinating week for me seeing how many people are involved on this ship. I mean, there's over 500 staff, something like that. It's incredible. You have to have medical teams, you have to have engineers, you have to have people who can get the ship in and out of port, you have to get people who cook. I mean, it's a huge operation, this, isn't it?
It is. You're quite right. Actually, today we've got 534 officers, staff and crew, 25 different nationalities, all working together. And you're quite right. A lot of it's behind the scenes. You don't see all the crew out on decks all the time, but it should appear to be a well-oiled machine. I believe it is. But it's a big team involved. Lots of officers responsible for each of their individual departments, making sure they're ticking along nicely. But I think, as you've seen, hopefully this week, Alex, it's been quite a smooth cruise indeed.
Absolutely nothing going wrong at all, and the staff couldn't be more nice. That's what amazes me. I mean, they remember your name, and not just my name because I'm here doing a review. They genuinely seem to care, and they've always got a smile, which can't be easy week after week after week.
No, that is an excellent point. I think if you did come back to cruise us again in the future, you'll see that there's a lot of familiar faces, because we have the retention rate that we have with the staff is very, very high indeed. And I do believe that you can't pay people to enjoy their work. If they enjoy the work, it shows, and I think our crew really do enjoy what they do, and that's what gives the ship the rather nice atmosphere that she has.
Being here for a week has been so enjoyable, coming in and out of port. When you've done this 17,000 times like you have, do you get claustrophobic? Do you just want to get off occasionally? What is it like?
Not at all, actually. It's interesting. Even though, particularly the Red Sea Magic cruises, we're on the same itinerary, but we do find that it's different weather conditions, different challenges as we come in and out of each of those ports of call. It's never the same circumstances. There's always new projects and new things happening. So that element, it doesn't become repetitive. But in terms of popping ashore, absolutely, I'm a very keen diver. So every now and again I'll pop ashore in Aqaba for a little bit of diving and take some time out if I can. But yeah, popping ashore occasionally, but it's not as repetitive as you may think it would be.
I couldn't do your job because I'd be the fattest captain in the world. I'd be 37 stone. You can get food on this ship 24 hours a day. Is it really necessary to have a buffet open at 3 a.m. in the morning, and who's going?
You may ask that question, but I think if you pop up to Liberties and a bit of a disco up there, and then you see what happens after Liberties closes, then it's quite a popular buffet indeed. But no, you're quite right, 24 hours of food a day. I have the same problem, Alex. I have to be very, very careful, and I try and go for the vegetarian option whenever I can, and that keeps me out of the gym, for the moment at least.
And of course, you have a gym, you have 3 or 4 restaurants, you've got the bar, Liberties, which is the more fun bar, and then you've got the quiet bar where you can just sit and relax. That's Hemingway's. You've got the library where you can sit quietly and read a book. You've taken care of everything on board. There's a cinema as well. It's incredible.
It's, in terms of modern cruise ship design, we are one of the smaller vessels really operating, but I think that in addition to the facilities we do have on board, which you've highlighted there, I think the atmosphere that we have, because of the size of the ship, the fact that the crew will get to know you during your week's cruise, they will know your name, and you're also going to meet other guests on board that you might stop and chat to and make some friends during the cruise. And I think that really only happens on this particular size of vessel, and I think that's one of the nice things about cruising on a ship that's the size of the Celebration, where we've got around about 1,200 guests, around about 530 crew, and that's a nice ratio, I believe, in that it makes it more of a personal experience.
Every night there's a show from your own entertainments team. There's 7 shows across the week. They do it twice nightly. I've never seen such passion and dedication. They really want to be there, and it is their Broadway stage, isn't it? They genuinely seem to believe that this is it. How do you instill that enthusiasm in them? Because I've seen people in the West End who really don't care. That's
an interesting question, and as I'm sure you're familiar with, we have many different companies working together in partnership to make the cruise happen. and our entertainments company actually is Peel Holdings, and they really are fantastic in what they provide on the entertainment side. And it's not unknown for some of our dancers to disappear off to the West End, so there is that transfer. But they are very motivated. They do work very, very hard indeed. They're working quite long contracts. But I think, again, they do enjoy their work. It shows, and the guests certainly enjoy those shows as well.
There isn't really a moment of the day where you can't be doing something on the ship. I was saying to you earlier, if you wanted, you could go away exhausted, because you could find a quiz at 3 o'clock in the afternoon tea at 5, go to the cinema at 6, have dinner at 8. By 10:30 there's a show, there's a late disco. You make sure that there's something for everybody almost 24 hours a day.
That's absolutely correct, and I know you've met our cruise director, Bram Lorenz, already, and Bram is certainly in charge of making sure there is always something to do for the guests to enjoy. Those guests that aren't off on tour, seeing the local sites, they can certainly enjoy their day on board. Make it as relaxing as they like, or they can certainly fill the day, as you say. But it's quite common that a guest will do 1 week with us in the Red Sea, often would like to come back for a second week to do the bits they missed on their first cruise.
I decided not to go and see what all the different attractions and go to the various places and ports we've come into, because I thought I'd be missing the cruise experience. It's odd, isn't it, that you're paying to be on a cruise and then you go off. It's horses for courses. If you want to go and see the pyramids, you can. Equally, you can sit there and just enjoy the sun.
No, you're quite right, and I think it appeals to different people with different cruise tastes. But somewhere like the Red Sea, we have some fantastic excursions. Really are. It's a great way to see the sights of the Middle East. I think if you tried to fly into the Middle East and then travel around different countries, it'd be very, very difficult indeed. But to move from country to country with your hotel and open your work curtains in the morning at a different port, I think is the right way to see the Middle East, and that's great. But you can also just relax on board, enjoy the sun. That's an entirely different holiday indeed.
Compliments to Thomson. One of the things I was concerned about was how efficient it was going to be getting me from the airport to the ship. Incredible how quickly that happened. There's none of this, you go on that bus, you go on that bus. You just get on the first bus, and within literally seconds, we left and we'd arrived here at the port. Incredible. I mean, you've got to make it speedy, because if not, on top of the flight, it could become laborious, and you think, oh, I can't be bothered, I'll just stay at one of the resorts.
That's an interesting observation. I mean, certainly the infrastructure, the logistics involved with moving the guests from the airport to the ship is very, very highly organised, and it's not just the guests, it's the luggage as well. You've probably noticed that the loading operation for the luggage. So yes, it is very carefully tailored. We do have subject to delays on flights occasionally. We have to deal with that when it happens, but it's quite a polished operation. We've got it to pretty high standard, so I'm glad it was seamless for you, Alex.
Yeah, it was. And then yesterday you very kindly allowed me to go on the bridge to watch you come into port, and what an operation that was. Incredible how you got this huge, great big ship into what was effectively a tiny hole, and you did it so seamlessly. I suppose that's the reason you're in the job you're in, because you don't get flustered. It's just part of the course, something that you do every day. To someone like me, though, spectacular to see how clever it was, and no automation whatsoever.
Obviously, it's something we do quite often. I think you get pretty good at it, but certainly there is very limited automation in terms of handling vessels like this. We really are using the direct control for the control pitch propellers and the thrusters to manoeuvre the vessel, which you saw yesterday. But she's a very handy ship to manoeuvre, and one I particularly enjoy manoeuvring. But it wasn't quite as difficult as perhaps you first thought, Alex, yesterday. It's quite a reasonable size gap to put the ship into. But she's a pleasure to handle. The team are a pleasure to work with, and I hope that shows in when you observe the British team in action.
But it wasn't a case of just pulling in. I mean, you'd got a ship either side and you could hit them. I mean, your job is to get in between the two, and you did it seamlessly. These aren't easy things to turn around. It's not like a car, is it, where you can just suddenly reverse and 2 seconds later you're where you should be.
No, you're quite right. The difference is the inertia. We're looking at 22,000 tonnes of steel, bunkers, water, ballast, people, and so it's very important that you control that inertia. It's all about energy management, really, in terms of how we control the ship, and we do things way in advance. So it's all carefully planned. The manoeuvring's carefully planned. Every now and again, we'll get the odd Egyptian pilot will throw us a challenge and put a ferry closer than we normally have, but certainly it's something we're very used to doing it. She's a lot of propulsion power there, almost 30,000 horsepower, 2,500 horsepower on the bow and stern thruster independently. So there's a lot of power to manoeuvre the ship, and she's quite handy in that respect. But you're quite right, very different to parallel parking your average Mondeo, I think.
And very finally about you, do you get homesick? Because, I mean, you're here for weeks on end. I know you can fly people in and have guests on board, but this is a hard life, isn't it, really? I mean, I look at some of the staff in the kitchens and they say that one was from Manila yesterday and he said he won't be home for 3 months. He'll see his grandkids for a couple of weeks and then he'll be back. It's a tough life on board, isn't it?
No, it is indeed, and I think when you first go to sea, your trip lengths and your ratio between working at sea and your time at home is quite biased in time. A lot of time spent at sea and more little time at home. As you progress through the ranks, that does improve, and that's one of the incentives at staying at sea for a long time. So the senior officers, like myself, we're pretty much working on a 1-for-1 rotation. So 3 months on board, 3 months at home. So it's a good balance between family life and working away. But for the more junior positions, then certainly it is more difficult. But they can choose to stay a little bit longer on leave, but it's obviously financially motivated about them coming back and working away again. But modern communications have helped an awful lot. We've now got Skype, we've got the internet, we can call home regularly. When I first went to see that, those facilities weren't available. It was a telex home, perhaps a satellite phone call at £7 a minute if you were very lucky. So things have improved a lot in that regard with keeping in touch. And as you said earlier, it's nice, very nice indeed to have the family out to visit on the ship. I think you'll see many of the crew members have got their mums and dads on board. I've got my partner on board, and my kids came out last contract as well. So that's a nice perk as well, working on the passenger fleet.
Captain John, thank you for having me on board for the last week. It's been incredible to see how you do all of this and meeting so many of your staff. They seem to genuinely love you and being on board the Celebration and doing the job they do. I think you've probably got to keep that optimism, because it would be a long season. I mean, some people are on for months on end, and to sort of do that day in and day out is incredible. The port's not the most glamorous in the world, but if you get off, you can see some incredible sights. If not, just stay and enjoy the sunshine. Where are you off to next? Because this isn't here through the summer, is it? This cruise finishes and then you go somewhere else.
Indeed, that's correct. Yeah, coming up to the end of April, we head back north through the Suez Canal. Now, our home port for the summer season is Marmaris in Turkey, and we've got some cracking cruises actually up to Istanbul, Greek islands, and some of the Turkish ports as well. So it's a move for our summer season, and you'll notice that the crew are already looking forward to their change of position. It might be something to do with a rather nice swimming pool that we have in our turnaround port at Marmaris for the crew to enjoy. But yeah, we're all looking forward to our change to our summer cruising programme, and it breaks the season up very nicely indeed.
Is there any time in your day for a bit of sunbathing?
Not recently, no. Unfortunately, it's been a busy contract, this one, and there's lots of planning for our next coming wet docks and dry docks and things, so it's been a busy contract. But I try and pop off, as I say, for a spot of diving. Doesn't help with the tan, though.
So it's not true that your only job is for a couple of hours to get in and out of port. That's not your only job.
I wish it were. I wish it were, actually. That's a very enjoyable part of my day, is a bit of driving, but there's an awful lot of administration, unfortunately.
Captain John, thank you very much for talking to me.
Been a pleasure. Thanks again.